Seducing women is a game, and most men are losing before they even speak. Let's be real, folks. You have felt it. You meet a woman, she smiles, she gives you attention, and you think you are in. Then you text too much, you try too hard, you compliment too fast, and somehow the energy flips. She gets colder. You start chasing clarity. You tell yourself you need better lines, better looks, more money. My friend, that is not the problem. The problem is you are playing blind. You do not see the invisible rules. Attraction is built on contrast, not predictability. It is built on control, not need. And the trick is not manipulation. The trick is learning how to shape perception with calm, with timing, and with a kind of quiet confidence that makes her lean in instead of leaning away. In this video, I will show you the cheat code most men never learn. How to stop mistaking attention for desire. How to pass the tests she never announces. How to use controlled ambiguity so she keeps thinking about you when you are not there. If you want stronger frame, stronger presence, and real sexual pull, stay with me. Subscribe now, because this channel is here to wake you up, not to comfort you. And once you see them, you cannot unsee them. Let's get into it. Number 1. Seduction is a game most men play blind. Let's be direct, folks. Most men enter seduction the same way they enter traffic, without knowing the rules. They rely on instinct, emotion, and hope, and when things fall apart, they assume they are lacking something instead of realizing they were never taught how the game actually works. Here's the uncomfortable truth, my friend. Seduction is not about being impressive. It is about perception. And perception is shaped long before you say the right thing, plan the date, or declare interest. It starts with how you carry yourself emotionally. Most men think the game begins when they speak. In reality, it begins the moment a woman senses your internal state, your calm or your urgency, your self-command or your need for validation. These signals are silent, but they are loud to her nervous system, and because no one explains these rules, men lose without understanding why. Let me make this real. John is 46, divorced, living in Dallas. He meets Amanda, 41, at a mutual friend's dinner. Conversation flows, there's laughter, eye contact. John walks away thinking, she's into me. But Amanda didn't decide desire yet. She only noticed him. That small misunderstanding becomes the turning point. John texts the next morning. Then again at lunch. He shares excitement, reassurance, and availability before attraction has had time to breathe. From his perspective, he's being honest and open. From Amanda's perspective, the mystery collapses. The game becomes predictable. Desire never forms. Amanda doesn't pull away because John lacks value. She pulls away because John revealed his hand too early. He played blind. Stoicism explains this clearly. Epictetus said that men are disturbed not by events but by their judgments about them. When you judge attention as success, you rush. When you rush, you signal hunger. And hunger is the fastest way to lose leverage in attraction. Here's another example. Michael is 52, married for over 20 years, trying to reconnect with his wife Karen, who is 49. Michael believes intimacy is rebuilt through more communication, more explaining, more emotional availability. Karen doesn't feel closer. She feels pressured. Michael thinks he's leaning in. Karen feels him emotionally collapsing. Different situations, same blindness. Both John and Michael believe effort creates desire. In reality, effort without restraint destroys it. Seduction is a game of contrast. Calm versus reaction. Presence versus pressure. Mystery versus explanation. Marcus Aurelius warned that if you are ruled by external things, you give away your freedom. When a man lets a woman's reactions dictate his emotional state, he hands over control, and control, whether spoken or not, shapes attraction. Once you see this, everything shifts. You stop chasing signals. You stop trying to secure outcomes. You stop overcorrecting every silence or mood change. You begin leading interactions instead of reacting to them. Seneca wrote that the greatest obstacle to living is expectation. The same is true in seduction. When you expect validation, you behave like a man seeking permission. When you expect nothing, you behave like a man who chooses. This awareness is the foundation. Without it, no tactic works. With it, seduction becomes simple, quiet, and controlled. If this opened your eyes, type this in the comments. Now I see the game. Stick with me because this is just the beginning. Next, we're breaking down why attention is not attraction and why most men confuse the two. Don't go anywhere. Number 2. Why attention is not attraction. Let's be precise, folks. Attention feels exciting, but it is not attraction. A woman can notice you, reply to you, even smile at you, and still feel nothing pulling her forward emotionally. That confusion traps most men. Most men treat attention like proof. A quick reply becomes hope. A laugh becomes permission. A long conversation becomes certainty, and the moment they believe attraction is secured, their behavior shifts. They relax their frame, increase validation, and remove tension. Attention stays. Desire fades. Here is the Stoic lens. Epictetus said that freedom begins when you stop mistaking externals for meaning. Attention is an external. Attraction is an internal response. When you confuse the two, you build strategy on illusion. Attention is cheap in a world of phones, notifications, and constant access. Attraction is rare because it requires emotional contrast. Attention says, I see you. Attraction says, I feel pulled toward you. Those are not the same experience. Let's ground this further. Attention is reactive. Attraction is selective. Attention responds to presence. Attraction responds to value. A woman can give attention out of politeness, curiosity, or boredom. She gives attraction only when something inside her shifts. Marcus Aurelius warned against living for applause. When a man feeds on attention, he becomes dependent on reaction. That dependence leaks through tone, pacing, and urgency. Even when unspoken, it is felt. This is where most men lose the game. They chase attention to soothe uncertainty. They text to feel chosen. They talk to avoid silence. In doing so, they remove the very contrast that attraction needs to grow. Stoicism teaches restraint over impulse. Seneca wrote that the greatest power is self-command. When you restrain the impulse to convert attention into reassurance, you keep your position. You allow space. Space creates evaluation. Evaluation creates attraction. Attention increases when you do more. Attraction increases when you do less, but better. Fewer words, slower reactions, clear boundaries, calm presence. These signal selectiveness, not need. Another truth, folks. Attention flatters the ego. Attraction challenges it. Attraction asks, do I want this man, not does he want me? The moment your behavior answers that question for her too quickly, curiosity dies. This is why compliments, constant availability, and emotional transparency too early backfire. They amplify attention, but starve attraction. They tell her nothing needs to be earned. The Stoics understood this dynamic without dating apps or modern language. Control your judgments. Control your reactions. Control your investment. When your attention is disciplined, it becomes meaningful. Meaning is felt sexually. So, recalibrate. Stop chasing responses. Stop reading attention as victory. Start watching behavior over time. Attraction reveals itself through effort, not through noise. One more reminder, my friend. Attention can spike from novelty, convenience, or timing. Attraction grows from consistency, boundaries, and emotional leadership. When you stop performing for reactions, your presence settles. That settled energy is read as confidence. Confidence slows the interaction and invites testing. Testing filters seriousness. Filtering creates desire. None of this requires manipulation. It requires patience. As Epictetus advised, focus on what depends on you. When your behavior depends on your values, not her responses, attraction has room to appear naturally. This distinction separates beginners from men who quietly lead interactions over time with calm authority. And, if this clicked for you, post this below. I know the difference. Stay with me, because next, we expose the fastest way men kill desire without realizing it. Do not go anywhere. Number 3. The fastest way men kill desire. Let's be brutally honest, folks. The fastest way men kill desire is not by saying the wrong thing. It's by trying to secure desire too early. The moment a man starts chasing certainty, he drains the tension that attraction feeds on. Most men don't see it happening. They feel interest and rush to lock it down. They explain how they feel. They seek reassurance. They push for clarity. They try to turn curiosity into commitment before desire has fully formed. And without realizing it, they smother the spark. Here's the pattern. A woman shows interest. She laughs. She responds. She leans in. The man panics internally and thinks, I can't mess this up. So, he increases effort. More texting, more compliments, more emotional disclosure. What he thinks is connection, she feels as pressure. Let me make this concrete. Eric is 45, divorced, living in Seattle. He meets Claire, 39, through mutual friends. The first few interactions are light and playful. Claire texts him first a few times. Eric takes that as a green light. He starts checking in every morning. He shares his intentions quickly. He tells her how refreshing she is. Claire doesn't confront him. She doesn't argue. She simply pulls back. From her side, nothing dramatic happened. Desire just faded. Eric killed it by trying to secure it. This happens because desire needs uncertainty to breathe. When you remove uncertainty too early, you remove the emotional work she needs to do. And when she no longer has to invest emotionally, interest drops. Another example. Brian is 53, married for 20 years, trying to reignite attraction with his wife Melissa, 50. Brian believes honesty means constant emotional transparency. When Melissa feels distant, Brian responds by talking more, explaining more, asking what's wrong. Melissa feels cornered, not closer. Brian thinks he's showing care. Melissa feels emotional weight. Desire fades under weight. Stoicism warns against this exact mistake. Seneca wrote that impatience ruins what patience builds. Desire grows slowly. When you rush it, you collapse it. Here's the key insight, my friend. Desire is not convinced. It is allowed. The more you try to manage it, the faster it disappears. Men kill desire by over-validating, by proving themselves, by making themselves too easy to read. Predictability feels safe, but safety without tension feels flat. Attraction needs contrast. Calm versus excitement. Presence versus restraint. Marcus Aurelius reminded us that if you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it. When you overreact to interest, you reveal insecurity. That insecurity is felt even if never spoken. Now look at the men who don't kill desire. They respond without chasing. They express interest without oversharing. They allow silence. They let moments breathe. Their emotional state doesn't rise and fall with every interaction. That steadiness keeps desire alive. This is especially important for men in their 40s, 50s, and beyond. Attraction, at this stage, isn't built on novelty. It's built on emotional leadership. on not needing to lock things down to feel secure. So stop trying to close the loop too early. Stop explaining yourself into exhaustion. Stop turning curiosity into obligation. Let desire unfold. Let her lean in at her own pace. When you stop trying to secure attraction, you become attractive again. If this sounds familiar, drop this in the comments now. I stop chasing. Stick with me, because next we're breaking down why attraction grows from contrast, not effort. And this is where most men finally start to see the shift. Don't go anywhere. Number 4. Attraction grows from contrast, not effort. Let's slow this down for a second, folks, because this is where most men get it completely backward. Attraction does not grow because you do more. It grows because you do differently. Contrast is what creates pull. Effort alone just creates noise. Most men believe attraction is earned through consistency, availability, and emotional output. So they try harder. They explain more. They show up more. They think intensity equals interest. But intensity without contrast feels flat. When everything is the same, nothing stands out. Contrast is the difference between presence and absence, between speaking and silence, between warmth and restraint. When those opposites exist, attraction has room to form. Without contrast, desire has nothing to push against. Stoicism understood this long before modern psychology named it. Epictetus said that freedom comes from mastering desire, not feeding it. When you master your impulses, your behavior gains weight. That weight is felt emotionally and sexually. Effort is visible. Contrast is felt. A woman does not respond to how much you give. She responds to how you pace what you give. When effort is constant, it becomes invisible. When effort is measured, it becomes meaningful. Here is the mistake. Men think effort proves value. In reality, effort often signals need, and need collapses contrast. The more you try to convince, the less space remains for attraction to grow on its own. Marcus Aurelius warned against living for external approval. When your actions are shaped by how she reacts, you lose contrast. You become predictable. Predictability removes tension. And without tension, attraction weakens. Contrast shows up in small ways. You engage, then you disengage cleanly. You show interest, then you return to your life. You listen, then you pause. These shifts create rhythm. Rhythm creates anticipation. Anticipation feeds desire. Effort chases outcomes. Contrast allows outcomes. That difference matters. Seneca wrote that what is excessive becomes its own punishment. Excessive communication, excessive validation, excessive availability all punish attraction. They flatten the dynamic. Contrast restores balance. This is not about being distant or cold. It is about proportion. Stoicism is built on proportion, knowing what belongs where, knowing when to act and when to withhold. That wisdom shows up as confidence. When you rely on effort, you burn energy trying to hold attention. When you rely on contrast, attention moves toward you naturally. One feels exhausting, the other feels grounded. Attraction grows when she senses that your life has movement independent of her. That movement creates polarity. Polarity creates desire. Desire deepens when effort is no longer the main tool. Here is the reframe, my friend. Stop asking how much more you should give. Start asking where contrast has disappeared. Often the answer is silence you avoided, space you filled, or reassurance you offered too quickly. This principle applies everywhere: dating, marriage, long-term relationships. When contrast disappears, attraction fades. When contrast returns, attraction often follows without discussion. If you want deeper frameworks like this applied clearly and without confusion, consider becoming a channel member. Membership gives you access to more focused teachings, practical Stoic applications, and guidance designed specifically for men who want control over their inner world and their relationships. Lock this lesson in by posting this below. I choose contrast. Stay with me because next we're exposing why validation quietly destroys attraction and how to stop doing it without becoming cold. Don't go anywhere. Number 5. Stop validating her and watch the shift. Let's get real for a moment, folks. Validation feels polite. It feels kind. It feels like you are doing the right thing. But excessive validation is one of the fastest ways to flatten attraction. When you constantly affirm her, praise her, and seek her approval, you quietly place yourself beneath her emotionally. Most men do this without realizing it. They compliment her looks too early. They agree with everything she says. They reassure her interest before she has invested anything. They think validation builds connection. In reality, it removes tension and flips the power dynamic. Here is the truth, my friend. Validation is only valuable when it is selective. When it is automatic, it loses weight. When it is constant, it feels needy. And need is not attractive. Let me give you a real situation. Paul is 44, an operations manager in Ohio. He starts dating Jenna, 38, who recently left a long relationship. Paul wants her to feel safe, so he validates constantly. He tells her she is amazing, strong, beautiful, different from other women. Jenna smiles and accepts it, but something shifts. She stops leaning in emotionally. Paul feels confused. What happened is simple. Paul made validation cheap. Jenna did not have to earn it, so it stopped meaning anything. Now contrast that with another example. Mark is 51, divorced, dating Susan, 46. Mark listens carefully. He does not rush compliments. When Susan shares something vulnerable, Mark acknowledges it without overpraising. When she seeks reassurance, he stays calm and grounded. His approval is not guaranteed. Susan starts paying attention to his reactions. She invests more. The dynamic shifts. Validation changes attraction depending on timing and proportion. Stoicism speaks directly to this. Seneca warned that he who seeks approval becomes a slave to those who grant it. When you validate excessively, you train yourself to seek acceptance instead of leading with self-respect. Here is what most men miss. Validation tells her where she stands with you. When you give it freely, she never wonders. When she never wonders, her emotional engagement drops. This does not mean withholding kindness. It means removing approval as a strategy. You are not there to reward every behavior. You are there to observe, respond, and choose. Marcus Aurelius wrote that a man must stand firm and not be shaped by others. When your sense of worth depends on her response, validation becomes a transaction. Attraction cannot grow in transactions. Let's say this plainly. Stop validating to be liked. Validate only what aligns with your standards. When approval reflects values instead of emotion, it regains power. Watch what happens when you pause before complimenting, when you acknowledge without praising, when you listen without fixing. Her behavior changes. She becomes more expressive, more engaged, more invested. This is especially important for men in midlife. At this stage, attraction is less about excitement and more about emotional respect. Validation given too easily feels juvenile. Validation earned feels intimate. When you stop validating, you stop chasing emotional outcomes. You return to your center. That centered presence is what creates the shift. If this resonates with you, drop this in the comments right now. I choose self-respect. Stick with me, because next we are breaking down controlled ambiguity and why it changes everything. Don't go anywhere. Number 6. The power of controlled ambiguity. Let's be honest, folks. Most men overshare because they are uncomfortable with not being fully understood. They rush to explain themselves. They define intentions too early. They fill every gap with clarity. And in doing so, they destroy one of the strongest forces in attraction, controlled ambiguity. Controlled ambiguity is not confusion. It is not lying. It is not manipulation. It is the discipline of not revealing everything at once. It is allowing space for interpretation. And interpretation is where emotional investment begins. Here's the reality, my friend. When everything about you is obvious, predictable, and fully explained, there is nothing left for her mind to engage with. Attraction does not grow in certainty. It grows in curiosity. Most men think clarity equals confidence. In truth, excessive clarity often signals anxiety. Anxiety to be liked, anxiety to be chosen, anxiety to lock things down. That anxiety leaks through behavior, tone, and timing, even when the words sound reasonable. Stoicism teaches restraint as power. Epictetus said that if you wish to be invincible, make no treaty with things that are not under your control. When you stop trying to control how she perceives you, you gain leverage. Controlled ambiguity is the refusal to overmanage perception. Here's how it works psychologically. When a woman cannot fully read your emotional position, her mind fills in the gaps. She wonders what you think. She replays interactions. She evaluates her own behavior. That internal processing creates attachment, not because you demanded it, but because her mind invested effort. Contrast this with the man who explains everything. His intentions are clear. His interest is obvious. His availability is constant. There is nothing left to decode. Her mind rests. Desire quiets down. Marcus Aurelius warned against making yourself dependent on the opinions of others. When you rush to clarify, you seek relief from uncertainty. But relief for you removes engagement for her. Controlled ambiguity tolerates uncertainty without anxiety. That tolerance feels confident and grounded. This is not about playing games. It is about pacing truth. You answer questions honestly but briefly. You express interest without over-defining it. You allow time to do what explanations cannot. Seneca wrote that what is rushed is rarely lasting. Attraction that forms under pressure fades under comfort. Controlled ambiguity slows the process. Slowness creates depth. Here's another key point. Controlled ambiguity protects your dignity. You do not audition. You do not sell yourself. You present yourself and let time reveal alignment. That posture communicates self-respect. Most men fear being misunderstood. But being slightly misunderstood is often what keeps attraction alive. Mystery is not hiding flaws. It is not broadcasting everything prematurely. Controlled ambiguity also filters. Women who are emotionally curious lean in. Women who need constant reassurance fall away. That filtering saves you time and energy. Let's be real. If you need to explain yourself constantly to keep her interest, the interest is already weak. Strong attraction does not require constant clarification. It survives space. Stoicism is built on inner solidity. When you are solid internally, you do not rush to define externally. You let actions speak. You let consistency build trust. You let silence do some of the work. When you stop over-explaining, conversations change. She listens more closely. She watches your behavior. She becomes more present. That shift is not accidental. It is the result of controlled ambiguity. So practice this. Speak clearly, then stop. Share, then pause. Show interest, then return to your life. Let your presence be felt, not over-explained. Over time, ambiguity turns into intrigue. Intrigue turns into investment. Investment turns into desire. If this makes sense to you, post this below right now. I keep mystery. Stay with me because next, we are exposing why emotional stability is the real turn-on. and most men misunderstand it completely. Don't go anywhere. Number 7. Emotional stability is the real turn-on. Let's get very real here, folks. Emotional stability is not boring, it is not passive, and it is definitely not weak. Emotional stability is one of the strongest signals of sexual competence a man can project, especially as you get older. Most men misunderstand this. They think passion means emotional intensity, big reactions, big explanations, big swings between closeness and frustration. In reality, those swings create emotional noise. Noise kills attraction. Emotional stability is different. It is the ability to stay centered regardless of what she does. When she is warm, you don't get carried away. When she pulls back, you don't panic. That steadiness is felt instantly, and it creates trust mixed with desire. Let me give you a clear example. Chris is 47, living in Austin recently, back in the dating world after a long marriage. He starts seeing Laura, 42, a marketing consultant who is used to emotionally reactive men. One evening, Laura cancels plans last minute. Old Chris would have shown disappointment or tried to reschedule immediately. This time he simply says he understands and wishes her a good night. Then he goes on with his evening. Laura notices something unusual. Chris did not collapse emotionally. He did not withdraw. He stayed steady. The next day she reaches out on her own and suggests a new plan. Emotional stability made him feel safe and attractive at the same time. Here is why this works. Emotional stability signals self-command. It tells her you are not governed by mood, impulse, or fear of loss. That self-command is rare, and rarity creates value. Now look at a long-term situation. Brian is 54, married to Michelle, 50, for over 2 decades. Over the years, Brian became emotionally reactive. If Michelle was distant, he pushed. If she was irritated, he argued. Tension grew. Attraction faded. Brian made one change. He stopped reacting emotionally. When Michelle was sharp, he stayed calm. When she was quiet, he didn't interrogate. He remained present without emotional volatility. Within weeks, Michelle softened. She talked more. She touched more. Emotional stability restored emotional safety, and desire followed. This does not mean suppressing emotion. It means regulating it. There is a difference. Suppression leaks out as resentment. Regulation shows up as calm confidence. Women are extremely sensitive to emotional instability. They feel it in tone, pacing, and presence. A man who needs emotional reassurance drains energy. A man who is emotionally stable becomes a place of rest and attraction. This is especially important for men in their 40s, 50s, and beyond. At this stage, attraction is no longer about excitement alone. It is about feeling grounded with someone who does not create emotional chaos. Emotional stability also changes how conflict feels. Disagreements stop feeling threatening. Tension becomes manageable instead of explosive. That maturity is deeply attractive. Here's the hard part, my friend. Emotional stability cannot be faked. It comes from having a life, a purpose, and standards that do not depend on her approval. When your emotional world is full, her reactions stop controlling you. Watch what happens when you stop reacting immediately, when you pause before responding, when you breathe before speaking. Your energy slows the room down. She feels it. Emotional stability tells her one thing clearly: you are safe to desire because you are safe to be with. If this resonates with you, drop this in the comments now. I stay grounded. Stick with me, because next we're talking about tests. The silent ones most men fail without even knowing they're being tested. Don't go anywhere. Number 8. Why women test you without saying a word. Let's get something straight, folks. Tests are not insults. They are not games meant to embarrass you. They are silent evaluations. and most men fail them because they don't even realize they're being tested. Women test without announcing it because attraction is built on observation, not explanation. She watches how you respond to pressure, uncertainty, disagreement, and delay. Not what you say, how you carry yourself when things don't go perfectly. Here's the mistake most men make. They hear the word test and think manipulation. In reality, tests are filters. They exist to answer one question. Is this man emotionally solid or emotionally fragile? Stoicism explains this cleanly. Epictetus taught that character is revealed under strain. A test simply introduces strain. Your reaction reveals your level of self-command. Tests come in subtle forms: a delayed reply, a mild challenge, a change of plans, a teasing comment, a moment of silence. None of these are accidents. They create friction to see what leaks out. When a man becomes defensive, needy, or reactive, the answer is clear. He is ruled by emotion. When a man stays composed, grounded, and respectful, something else becomes clear. He can be trusted with desire. Marcus Aurelius wrote that the best way to show strength is not to be disturbed by trivial things. Tests are trivial events with meaningful consequences. How you handle them determines whether attraction deepens or fades. Most men fail because they over-explain. They justify. They seek reassurance. They try to fix the moment. In doing so, they answer the test incorrectly. They show that their emotional balance depends on approval. Stoicism teaches us to respond, not react. A response is measured. A reaction is impulsive. Tests are designed to expose the difference. Here's an important point, my friend. Tests are not about dominance. They are about safety. Emotional safety. A woman wants to know if she can express herself without causing you to collapse, lash out, or beg. Seneca warned that the man who cannot govern himself will be governed by others. When you fail a test, you hand over control. When you pass, you keep your frame. Passing a test does not require clever words. It requires calm presence, silence instead of panic, humor instead of defensiveness, boundaries instead of compliance. When you pass silently, something shifts. She relaxes, not because you submitted, but because you didn't break. That resilience is attractive. Here's where men get confused. They think passing a test means pleasing her. It does not. It means remaining yourself under pressure. Authenticity under stress is what builds respect. Tests also increase as attraction grows, not because she wants to sabotage things, but because the stakes feel higher. She needs to know if the foundation is solid. Stoicism prepares you for this. When you detach from outcomes and focus on conduct, tests lose their power. You stop trying to win moments. You start embodying standards. Notice this shift. You stop arguing your worth. You stop correcting perceptions. You stop managing reactions. You allow behavior to speak. Over time, tests become less frequent. Why? Because confidence has been demonstrated. The evaluation phase ends. This is not about being unfeeling. It is about being unshaken. Calm strength communicates more than reassurance ever could. If this resonates with you, lock it in below by typing this: "Now, I hold my frame." Stay with me, because next we're breaking down soft dominance.